Okay, people, this is going to be more or less the sequel to my previous video about dissecting prompts. Okay, I could go through a bunch more prompts and just help you understand what you should be looking for in the documents. That's fine, I can do that on an individual basis, but for now, let's actually talk about other ways I might read through those documents. Okay, so as I mentioned in the previous video, each prompt is going to say something along the lines that evaluate the extent to which something. Okay, so you should, no matter what, every single DBQ, every document, you should be looking for an extent that something is occurring, whether it's good, bad, long, short, big, small, whatever descriptor it is. Okay. In addition to that, there's other ways you can frame how you read these documents. And these are things we've talked about throughout the year. So these are general go-tos. If I'm reading a DBQ and I'm not exactly sure where to go, like, don't just go in blind reading these documents and hoping it's going to all come together and make sense. It probably won't. It might, but it probably won't unless you're reading with intent. And so what I would do if I were you, if I can't somehow get a good grasp of what the prompt is asking, I'm going to at least read these documents through a couple of go-to lenses. And those lenses are, first and foremost, AP theme. Okay, so we talked in the acronym pieces. So I'm looking at politics, I'm looking at innovations in tech, I'm looking at economics, I'm looking at cultural stuff, I'm looking at humans in their interaction with their environment, and I'm looking at social stuff. Okay, so how do each of these documents fit within those themes? Okay, you don't have to look at it through that lens, but that's a really good starting point if you're not sure what the prompt is immediately asking you. So if I'm reading through those through the pieces lens, I'm going to be able to identify one or more theme that each document kind of corresponds to. And in that way, like, let's just use this as an example. We got 3 documents here that are really easily identified tying to economics. They're all about trade or something. And then these other 2 are more about cultural stuff, like the spread of religion. Great. Those 2 buckets that I'm going to be using to frame my thesis are really well set up for me. And guess what? That even tees up analysis of reasoning point 2, that complexity point, because I'm doing stuff across 2 different themes. Okay, so it helps that as well as you look through the lens of pieces, the AP themes. Now, another lens you could look through is geographical, or I guess I would say geographical or national. In other words, this continent, Africa, Europe, Asia, whatever, and then perhaps the nations or empires that are operating or have interest in those places. So for example, if you're looking at that imperialism DBQ, you have the French over here, you got the Germans over here, you got England, and so you have various national buckets as well that each of these documents is going to fall under. And that way it's much easier to kind of compare what's going on within those various documents to frame your thesis, to frame your essay, and to structure each of the paragraphs. Another great go-to is chronology or time. Okay, not usually, every time the College Board is going to give you a time frame to operate in. Now that time frame might be within another unit that we've talked about. So for example, Unit 6 is 1750 to 1900. Well, they might give you a smaller time frame within that time frame to work within. Now, the reason I bring that up is because you might have documents that occur early in that time frame, in the middle of that time frame, and later in that time frame. And by comparing what's going on throughout it, you're going to see some similarities and differences. So, for example, would be I had the response to workers' rights kind of thing for the Industrial Revolution, and you have early 19th century to late 19th century. A lot changed during that century. So those documents are going to reflect those changes, and you should pay attention to that year in the sourcing information so that you can identify, like, hey, the extent was much more significant earlier in the 19th century versus less significant later in the 19th century, as an example. Those would be my 3 to 4 go-to categorization methods for these documents, regardless of the prompt. So again, themes, geography or nationality, chronology, time, and then I had another one. I think it was just those 3. But those are really good ones to work within. And then again, if you understand the prompt is going to help you know where to go regardless. But I hope this just really emphasizes the need to understand what the prompt is asking and the need to really read those documents with intent. Don't just go into the DBQ and read. You need to read with a very specific idea in mind so that you can really use those documents as evidence to answer that prompt. That's what you're trying to do with the DBQ. People, you're very capable of doing this. I believe in you, and I hope this helps. Have a good one.